This is normally Coffee with Nate. And today it's not because it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's more like Mountain Dew with Nate. And I'm not technically sponsored by Mountain Dew, but I am open to the possibility, right? Mountain Dew is what's good for you. And we'll see whether or not maybe we can get a business relationship going. What do you think, James?
Yes, I mean, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right?
That's exactly right. I want to introduce those of you who are who have watched this before. I'm not in my house anymore. I'm back in the office. It's kind of nice. And this is the first time I've ever tried to do like an interview. And so we're going to give this a shot because I thought it would be a great opportunity to have a moment to talk a little bit about the Black Lives Matter movement, about racism in the United States, systemic racism, and within the context of a kind of a faith-based community that's kind of thinking about these sorts of things. You know, this is something I'm recording for church, not for kind of public consumption, although anybody's welcome to hang out and be a part of it. So I thought, you know, what I would do is invite somebody that I trust, that I know. And so I want to introduce you to James Montevier. Those of you who have watched this might not know that this could be Coffee with Nate Montevier. So you'll notice that the two last names are the same. James is, for full disclosure, my nephew. And that's one of the reasons, James, I wanted to have you on, because in this conversation, I trust you. You know, I know who you are. I don't, you know, I know where you're coming from. I don't trust this conversation with a lot of people right now. It feels like folks are reacting as much as they're thinking, myself included. So James, thanks for being here. And one of the things, you know, I know James from a lot of different contexts, but I've been watching you, James, on Facebook, and watching your advocacy and, you know, kind of the ways that you've been participating in the Black Lives Matter movement. And so I know you, and when I see your posts, I know where you're coming from. I noticed that when I post on Facebook, I don't know if you noticed, if you had this experience, I'll have like a conversation in my brain, and there'll be these voices, and I'll put them up on Facebook because I want to share that with other people, but they're not like in my head. And they'll like, maybe sometimes I don't express myself the way I wanted to. I would love to be able at every post to say, here's what you need to know about me before you react, right? So maybe I thought at the beginning of our conversation, I just would like to ask you, what do people need to know about you as they engage you in conversations like, you know, political type conversations and conversations about social justice? What do we need to know about you to know where you're coming from?
I think some important things to know about me is I come from, I'm a product of a biracial marriage, right? So my father was Black and my mother is white. So that kind of ingratiated me into two different American cultures from the get-go. So it kind of helped me view the world through at least two different lenses right off the bat. My parents got divorced when I was 10. So primarily between the ages of 10 and 13, my father figure was my grandfather. And he was a blue collar union man, right?
Yeah.
So he taught me that no one's really going to give you anything in this world, but at the same time, that shouldn't stop you from giving to others.
Yeah.
Don't expect to be handed anything, but at the same time, don't be a curmudgeon about it when someone asks for help, you know?
Yeah.
So, and he was probably one of the most influential men in my life, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, my mother, never really politically active, right? But she taught me that never let someone else think for you.
Yeah.
Critically, you should approach every situation that you're not sure of critically. Think of it critically. But most importantly, try to view it through the eyes of the person talking to you.
Reasons. I really don't think it's my place to try and define Black Lives Matter, but I understand Black Lives Matter to be a kind of a diverse kind of group of ideas. For some people, Black Lives Matter is kind of like a slogan, like a rally cry. Other people, Black Lives Matter is kind of like a political movement. There's a group to it. How do you understand Black Lives Matter? I mean, what is it that we need to know about Black Lives Matter if we're only kind of coming at it from one perspective? Talk to me about what it is to you.
So interestingly enough, I think it's to me, it's both of those things. It is, I don't like considering it a political movement. I think they have some things they want done politically, but I view it as more of a moral movement. I
Okay.
see it more as why hasn't this been done already? I think human beings at the core are good people. They want to see good done. And so I don't think, equal rights for Black people, ending police brutality should be a political idea.
Mhm.
To me, I think it should just be the morally right thing to do. Now, how it's done, that becomes the political idea. And
Right.
I think that's where you get the diversity in the Black Lives Matter movement. Is
Okay.
a lot of people see the things I post and they think about it purely through their experience,
Okay. I
purely
like.
through things they've
Okay.
seen, which is anecdotal. If you only view the world through your limited scope of your life, right, and your experiences with police officers or whatever, then of course you're not going to believe me when I say this happens to Black people on a daily basis. Because my wife, Amy, has explained to me before we got married, before we started driving in a car together, she viewed the news in a very different light. Then once she understood, when she saw Black people getting beaten or shot by police officers or vigilantes or anything like that, she became concerned about me driving back and forth to work in the middle, right?
Huh. Yeah.
Because she was like, well, what if that happens to you? And I'm like, we live in West Des Moines. The chances that happen to me are pretty nil, right? I don't speed. I don't park in abandoned parking lots. I don't do any of that. I just go back and forth from work, especially in this time of COVID. That's all I do. I don't really leave the house. I just go back and forth from work.
Yeah.
But what I had to explain to Amy is that's the kind of fear that my sisters have had their entire lives when it comes to me and my brother.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen Tynan. He's darker than me. He's 6'4". He's 300 pounds. A lot of people could see him as a quote unquote scary Black guy. Obviously you don't. I don't. We both know Tynan's a teddy bear.
Yeah.
Tynan is
Yeah.
one of the most unassuming individuals you'll ever meet. But it's a real kind of tension and fear in the room when you look like he does or when you look like I do and a police officer walks in the room. And honestly, it hurts my heart that there's that tension there. I don't think it should be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that when a police officer pulls up next to me at a stoplight, I should just feel the exact same tension as everybody else. I need to follow the laws to the T so I don't get pulled over because I don't need this ticket.
Right.
It shouldn't be I need to follow the letters to the T and then some because I don't want to get pulled over and get shot.
You said something, James. I don't mean to interrupt you, but it really caught me, and I hadn't thought about it like this. You said that it means that people don't trust you, that you're saying is true. Like if you're posting, this is your experience, or this is the experience that you're familiar with, and people say that's not that's not that's not what's happening. They're really saying what you're saying is not true. And I hadn't thought about it like that, that maybe that's why there's so much conflict right now, because essentially as people share their experiences or their fears or their hopes or whatever, and somebody else comes along and just kind of randomly leaves a comment, it's kind of like liar, liar, liar. None of us are trusting each other enough to listen to one another. I mean, I suppose that's what I said at the outset of all this. I don't trust a lot of people with this conversation. And that's, I think that's a lot of wisdom worth us to pay attention to. And it leads me to maybe ask, understand why it is that at least at this time, all lives matter can be a problematic thing for people to hear.
Okay, so if all lives matter was a movement 10 years ago, I would view it honestly. People are just saying we should treat all lives equally.
Okay.
But the fact that hashtag all lives matter never came up until hashtag Black Lives Matter came up shows me that it is not a movement in of its own. It's a movement against a movement, right?
Okay.
I'll use the same analogy I used earlier. If you go to the doctor with a broken leg, like it's visible that the rest of your body is fine, but you have a broken leg, and you like, well, can we get this fixed? And the doctor says, we're going to do a full body x-ray, which is going to cost you another $8,000. And like, well, I don't think I need that. I just need you to x-ray the leg. I'm like, yeah, but all your bones matter. I think a lot of people, when they hear Black Lives Matter, for some reason, they see only Black Lives Matter. And at least in my experience, every person I've ever met that has that bumper sticker or uses that hashtag, that is not what they mean. They mean Black Lives Matter as well, right? And all lives matter cannot be true until we get to the point where Hispanic lives matter, where immigrant lives matter, where Black lives matter, where trans lives matter, when LGBTQ lives matter. When all those come up to meet the level of every other life in America, that's when all lives matter doesn't become a dog whistle. Because for me, right now, all lives matter looks exactly the same as when someone goes, well, what about black on black crime? No one brings up black on black crime until someone says something about the inequality of black deaths at the hands of police officers. No one talks about that. And I understand that there are plenty of people, when they say all lives matter, they truly believe that we should be worried about all lives, right? Yeah. They do not mean it in any kind of derogatory fashion. But all I wish those people understood is that I just want you to give me the same benefit of the doubt. When I say Black Lives Matter, I mean it in a genuine, honest manner. I do not mean it to demean your life.
In about 20 minutes, but I really appreciate this. I really appreciate the time. And do me a favor, if you would, kiss that baby for me and all that good stuff. I can't wait. I'm going to stop the recording and we'll chat a little bit more, but I want to thank you for being here, at least for this. And so for everybody who's watching, thank you so much. There'll be more of these. I'm glad you're here. Thanks, James.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to do it.
You bet.